entrepreneurs and business owners don't lose their wealth building a business, they lose it after they have already succeeded. And Mr. Todd is here to help us figure out all the unknowns, the dangers. He's a nationally recognized tax attorney, board certified estate planning expert, and the founder of Fountainhead Global, and his website is lawealthplan.com. Now, Todd is a leading authority on building, protecting, and transferring wealth across generations. So, Todd, I'm happy to have you here, and I'm curious how we pronounce your last name because I didn't even want to attempt to try that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your audience today, Robert. I'm Todd Villarrubia. I'm a 30-year tax attorney, a board-certified expert in estate planning and administration, as well as a certified exit planning advisor, and was recognized as one of the top 100 attorneys in America by Worth Magazine. We've helped thousands of entrepreneurs protect billions of dollars from the government, taxes, and creditors, and that's what we do.
Very nice. And I'm curious right off the bat, whenever taxes are mentioned, I'm always very anxious, right? I'm just like, well, where do people get into trouble with like minimizing their taxes? And I'm also concerned sometimes about just like speaking about taxes in public, right? Like if I say something on social media, is that a problem? Or just like, what are the dangers as far as like we want to save on our taxes, but can we get in trouble?
Yeah, so, pigs get fatter, hogs get slaughtered. That's one of the principles that I was taught a long time ago. And it's true. There's a lot of legitimate income tax, capital gains tax, and estate tax planning strategies that we implement that the IRS will certainly allow as long as you follow all of the myriad of rules that they have that you need to follow. So we regularly implement proactive income tax reduction and capital gains tax reduction strategies, as well as estate tax elimination structures.
Okay, so stay within the rules, and that's why we need someone like you to make sure that we can kind of check both of these two boxes, right? We want to be compliant,
Right.
but we also want to be smart with our money, because sometimes you hear about some transaction happening or like selling a business or doing some real estate deal and making a mistake where then all the money and then some is evaporated just because you didn't structure things properly. And so like what have you seen? Like, I know you say that entrepreneurs shouldn't pay more tax than necessary, but like what is there like a low-hanging fruit, or are common mistakes we should look for to begin with?
I've seen everything from a good buddy of mine that built a business from 0 to 100 million and had never evidenced his ownership, and he lost 10 to 20 million dollars as a result of that mess up. I've had clients who had improper retirement accounts where they weren't contributing to their employees like they were supposed to, and subject to DOL penalties and potentially even criminal liability. I've seen clients who are in high-risk businesses who don't have their home and other assets protected against seizure by creditors. I've seen people die with young children who aren't ready to handle the responsibility of inheriting millions of dollars. So I've seen a lot of bad things happen by people failing to plan before something happens and it's too late.
So is that the common thread, that we need to think about the future, consider some worst case scenarios, get things documented, that way we're planning for that future?
We all know that the good Lord's coming for us at some point. None of us know when that's going to be. My own dad had a stroke at 47. He was a quadriplegic for 6 years before he eventually died in his early 50s. So and he was the strongest man I've ever met. So you just never know when fate's going to come for you.
And yeah, and it's an easy mistake to make, or easy lesson to miss, right? Because you never like, yeah. And I try not to think about that, but yeah, I might step out the front door and a Mack truck just completely flattens me. And so a lot of people are maybe caught up in the day to day, right? They might not take this seriously because they say, well, I've got more pressing matters right now. So how do we reframe that mindset? How do we get people to maybe devote a little bit of their mental space or a little bit of time for this future planning?
Unfortunately, sometimes it takes something happening to someone close to you. I can't tell you how many times we'll get a call saying my best friend or my brother just died and his wife's going through a mess and I don't want to put my family through that. What can we do? And then we'll guide them appropriately. There's structures we can implement to avoid probate and to protect what you built from creditors of your kids in the future and divorces and things like that.
That's good. So turn a bad into a good, right? If that close friend or family member met a bad demise, and then afterward there were other repercussions, then we say, let's take this seriously and learn a lesson from this and apply it to myself. And I know that your kind of mindset is that there's different pivot points, right? There's different areas of growth when you start a business and you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants and doing all kinds of things. But once you get to different levels of income, then what got you here won't get you there, and you have to change up strategies. And so what have you seen along those lines as far as changing our direction as the business grows?
Well, as an example, if somebody's paying less than 50,000 a year in taxes, the money to invest to fix that, it just doesn't make sense. But once you're paying 100,000, 500,000 of taxes, there's so much that we can do proactively, and we can show the client clear return on investment, clear ROI every step of the way. And that makes it very compelling, because if you put up $1 and get back 3, I think people are going to do that all day long. And that's basically what tax planning does.
Ooh, very nice. So, and I can see the value in having someone like you look at the whole picture versus just picking up the tips. Because tips are okay sometimes, but you read a blog post and you say, "Oh, I should buy real estate, or I should contribute to the retirement account." And you're saying, well, if you're not at that income level yet, then you're really kind of you're messing yourself up. So different actions are needed for different levels of income. And so, do you have an example of what have you done? Like, as far as, some business owner gets a certain level and you say, hey, we'll set this up. Like, what's an example or a story of what you've created?
So we've had clients who have come to us with $100,000 plus income tax bills that we're able to invest in a solar program whereby the client gets all their tax money back. They literally go back in and refile the last 2 to 3 years returns. That money gets put into the project and can offset your income for not only this year, but can even carry forward at times to future years to offset income. We've had clients do film tax credit programs. We've had clients do charitable leverage plans. We've had clients use charitable remainder trusts to avoid taxes, charitable lead trusts to avoid estate taxes. So there's a bunch of different tools. It's just a matter of applying the correct solution to that particular client's needs and objectives.
Very cool. And it seems like you're up to date as far as what can be done. And so I know, like, with business owners, especially, there's all sorts of threats, right? There's lawsuits. We mentioned taxes and creditors and healthcare costs. And so I'm curious about maybe what people underestimate when these business owners come to you and they have a big tax bill, or they have these expenses and they've just haven't noticed something. Like, what do we underestimate?
I think you underestimate the possibility of getting sued. And when you get sued, business owners have a big target on their back because people know they've got money. And when they get sued, they can come after, the creditors can come after their house in a lot of situations, their bank accounts, their C corporations. If they have a C corp, it can be taken, that stock. We had a client that sold a couple of his businesses. He had about 35 million sitting inside of a C corp, and I told him, if you get sued, that creditor can come seize that stock and do a distribution, and you would be left with nothing. So we moved that stock into what's called the Domestic Asset Protection Trust, and in so doing, we avoided any future creditors being able to reach those assets.
Okay, so it can be just that simple and a matter of the money is parked in the wrong place. And so I'm always just curious about the money mindset, right? Guys like you, when you talk about what's possible, it amazes me, right? It's so cool that it just, even just in a few minutes, it completely changes my perspective about money. And I know like you do some writing about money and you have this concept called wealth without purpose. So could you explain that?
So for us, wealth is more than just about a dollar amount. It's about developing a family constitution. It's about developing core values for the family, about coming up with, what we do and what we don't do as a family, having regular family meetings, doing financial literacy for the kids, stressing the importance of asset protection in everything they do. So it's a lot more than just talking about money. It's about wealth, transfer, and building dynastic wealth is really the ultimate goal.
Ooh, well, very cool. And the way that you talk about it, the money almost sounds like a religion. And I've always thought, especially this last few years, like why schools especially don't teach the financial literacy commonly. And it's easy to take the shortcut of saying like, oh, well, the system, the man, the establishment, they want to keep us poor. But I just wonder if the education system just hasn't figured it out, right? Because it is like religion. There's a million different angles and slants to it. But if it's more like family based, then it's like, well, hopefully everyone's more on the same page as far as these ideas like saving more than you spend and having an emergency fund and just not being an evil like predatory person with money. And you mentioned money and family, and sometimes money tears marriages apart, tears families apart. So as far as this kind of like so-called like stewardship, I guess you might say, as far as like the family meetings and the family values, like what do you recommend for families so that way money adds and does not take away?
I think it's a process that just takes time and education and experience, we meet with our high net worth clients at least annually, and we discuss the structures, discuss anything new that's come up in the past year, talk about, what needs to be done going forward, and then, where are the gaps between where we are now and where we want to be. Who's gonna transfer the business to? Is it going to be to the kids or key employees? Or we're going to do an ESOP? Or we're going to do a sale to a third party? Things like succession planning become critical in these kind of conversations.
And I can only imagine the just the mountain of emotion that comes with that. And you hear stories about that, right? About how that this one generation of the family like did all the hard work, and then the kids that it was just handed to, they squandered it. They didn't know how to handle it. And so how is it just a matter of like communication or this kind of recurring goal setting that you're mentioning, like the yearly
It's a
meetings or like
lot.
what?
We actually
Okay.
cover all this. I can show you on my book, Entrepreneurial Beast Mode. You can get this book on Amazon, and it literally is a blueprint for the top 1% of families in the country on how to protect your wealth from taxes, business succession, divorce, creditors, lawsuits, all that.
Very exciting. So that's called Entrepreneurial Beast Mode, a proven
Yeah.
blueprint for EO, YPO, and Tiger 21 members to slash taxes, protect wealth from creditors, and build 100-year legacies while achieving 10 plus to 1 ROI. There's like 7 promises in one. I've never seen a title like that. That's amazing. And so like what motivated you to write a book like this? Was it just like you were tired of like the repetition, or some
Yeah,
people think of a book but few take action?
and there's so few people that understand all this. I wanted to make it easy and digestible. So I hired a ghostwriter, and then I would explain all these sophisticated, complex strategies, and he would then break it down into layperson language to make it easier to read.
That's a good way of going about it. And this is a huge book, right? It's like over 500 pages.
Yeah, it's 520 or so pages.
And so do you recommend, is this something that someone just like reads cover to cover, or is there like one part of a book
Yeah,
that's more important than the others?
no, it all's going to depend on your unique circumstances, but cover to cover is going to make the most sense.
All right. And so yeah, and this is important stuff, right? Because I mean, money does make the world go round, and money isn't everything, but you'll sure be a lot, you'll be unhappy if you don't have enough, right? And
Right.
able to cover yourself, and it can definitely like change your generational wealth future path, as long as you are treat money properly, and you take these steps. And like we hear stories all the time about like, well, someone won the lottery and they got millions of dollars and they ended up committing suicide or murdered
Yeah.
or poorer than when they started. And so out of everything that you've seen with money, the tax planning, the succession planning, the business ownership, etc., do you think there might be like a number one secret about money, or something that like is like true to your core about the money strategy?
I think you have to, if you get a windfall through an inheritance or through a lottery winning or something or a lawsuit, you really have to be smart about it. You have to say, okay, I'm going to take maybe 5, 10% at most and go blow it on whatever you want, cars, vacation, travel, whatever. But then the other 90% should be socked away for your future, and ideally into something that you're not going to touch until you're ready to retire in your 60s.
Hmm. That's great. They say give every dollar a job, don't they? And I recently
Yeah,
heard comedian Jay Leno, he like did the stand-up comedy and then did the Tonight Show, and the Tonight Show money, he never touched it. He just put all those millions away, and then in order to survive, he did the stand-up comedy. And like that's kind of interesting way of thinking, right? You say like here's how I'm going to split up my money, and here's where it goes, and this I might touch and this I might not touch. And it's like that's a
yeah,
great starting point. But I believe we need you to kind of get us on the right track and tell us where to go. So we've jumped around all kinds of interesting, fascinating subjects about like money and wealth and so on. Do you think in our conversation there might be a missing question that I should be asking you? I just don't know to ask you.
sure. And that would be, what is the most powerful tool we use for our high net worth clients? And the answer is a Delaware Dynasty Trust.
Okay.
It's the only trust in the country that goes forever, and asset protects those assets for future generations while eliminating all estate tax on the assets that are contributed into it, up to $30 million, which is the federal gift tax exemption. So we can literally, protect $30 million of business assets inside a Delaware Dynasty Trust, while the client still maintains control, because we usually issue 1% Class A voting rights of the company to the client that they always own. And the 99% Class B non voting units get placed into the trust at discount. And that's where we fund the 30 million for our high net worth clients.
Very cool. And I'm not sure I understood all of that, but that's why you had your ghostwriter to simplify things.
Right.
And that's why it's good to say, ooh, I heard Todd tell me to do this with the Delaware Dynasty Trust, but the other thing with the 1%, etc. Like that's where it makes so much more sense for an attorney like you to implement, because if we try winging it ourselves, then we won't apply it properly, and that can be very bad. So we want someone like you to get us implemented. And so to have that conversation, if someone says, I love what Todd had to share today about asset protection, succession, tax planning, and some of these concepts like shielding wealth and creating a 100-year dynasty and all these other things, like what are some next steps here? If someone wants to contact you, Todd Villarrubia, what's the logical next step?
You can reach out to us on either website. So for Wealth Planning Law Group, the law firm, we have www.lawealthplan.com. And then for our fractional family office services, we have fountainheadglobal.com. And we offer complimentary consultations with prospective new clients. We only take 20 clients on per year. So it's important that you get in while you can. We're operating at right about capacity right now. We only have space for one or two more people this quarter. So you can reach me personally at Todd, Todd, at lawealthplan.com, or on our 1-800 number, which is 1-833-USA-WEALTH. 833-USA-WEALTH.
That's a cool phone number, 833-USA-WEALTH. And that's Todd at lawealthplan.com. And lawealthplan.com is how to contact Wealth Planning Law Group. For over 30 years, they have helped thousands of families protect their wealth from the government, from taxes, and from creditors. And that other website that we mentioned is Fountainhead Global, the entrepreneur's wealth optimizer, because you didn't build your wealth using cookie cutter solutions, so you shouldn't protect it that way. And Fountainhead Global offers elite integrated family office systems that transform complexity into clarity. We're talking about asset protection, tax architecture, succession planning, legacy design, and so much more. They don't just plan, they provide optimized wealth across generations. And that's fountainheadglobal.com. And the book we mentioned by Todd M. Villarrubia is Entrepreneurial Beast Mode. And it's worth it to get educated about these sorts of things, right? Because your future's at stake. And they say, choose your heart, don't they, Todd? They say, well, if
Yep.
you are saying, well, it's such a hassle to learn this stuff, well, isn't it even more of a hassle to be broke later or be monetarily frustrated? Or if you're like that friend of yours that maybe had the stroke or something unexpected, to leave your family in the lurch, you don't want to do this. So we need to take these things seriously, get our financial literacy in order, get educated about money. The book is Entrepreneurial Beast Mode by Todd Villarrubia. The website's fountainheadglobal.com and lawealthplan.com. And as we're checking out those resources, it's time for the scary part of the show, Mr. Todd, where I try to stump you, I try to put you on the spot by asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun or interesting quote or lesson?
That's a good one. How is a fun or interesting quote? Well, they say that the only two things that are certain in life are death and taxes. And I guess I'm blessed that as an estate tax attorney, I deal with death and taxes every day. And it really is an honor to serve in this capacity for our high net worth client families.
Very good. That's a wonderful attitude. Death and taxes, they're inevitable, so you might as well make the best of them. So lawealthplan.com and fountainheadglobal.com. And it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today, Mr. Todd, and you educating us about what we should know about money and our business and our future. So thanks for making the time.
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate your time today. It's been an honor.